We don't condone spitting when you hear something you disagree with. We do, however, condone talking it out for 2 hours every weekday at 3 p.m. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we are off and rolling here on a Tuesday. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. I'm not going to lie, I was kind of a game time decision today for the show. I don't know how many of you have just experienced like the worst toothache in the world. Like I'm mouth swollen, head throbbing. I'm not willing to take any more ibuprofen or anything because I'm afraid of how much I've taken due to the pain that is just absolutely taking over my head right now. But I'm hoping that this, that this medicine helps here. But it was a game time decision, but I'm toughing it out. Excited to be with you here today. A lot to get into. Jamar Chase, I ended yesterday's show and I was just annoyed. I was like, I can't believe that's a topic. I can't believe that we actually discuss athletes spitting on other athletes in a temper tantrum moment. But I was hoping to kind of get past that, especially because within the middle of the show, it was announced that he got a suspension. He's going to lose a game check, which is $500,000. He wouldn't be available for the Patriots game, and that we just move on, But there was one point of the show yesterday that I was really harping on, which was, why is he not saying anything? Why has he not released a statement? Why is he not available to the media? Like, this isn't hard. We all know he made a mistake. You would like to think that he deep down thought that he made a mistake as well. So what's so hard about just going to the media and saying, look, I'm a hothead and I made a stupid, embarrassing, bad decision when I lost my temper in that, heated showdown with the Steelers on Sunday. It's not like anyone would say, oh my gosh, it's okay, it's totally fine. It's not like anybody would sit there and say, oh, it's cool, you should do it again. Everyone would say, yeah, it was a mistake, but at least you're owning up to it. And then we'd all move on. But the silence to me was louder than anything else. The silence to me was louder than anything that he could have said, because he was basically telling you what he thought without telling you what he thought. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. I thought it was messed up that he did not address it. I thought it was messed up that he did not speak to the media. I thought it was messed up that he did not release a statement apologizing for his actions. And it was a mistake on my end because I didn't connect the dots. The one reason why he wasn't going to come out and apologize is because if he apologizes, he is admitting that he did something wrong, which he did. But he can't admit that he did something wrong because he was planning on appealing, and that's exactly what's happening. Now, I read, because social media, this is even going back to it, and shout out to my guys, Elliot and Jacob and Casey and Reed and those guys. Well, I love doing the show with those guys on Chatterbox, for the longest time. But they would make fun of me because there were so many times where I would come across an article and I would get duped, because on social media, on Twitter, everyone has a blue check mark now. Everything looks real. So I would grab a story and run with it. And they'd be like, oh no, you got Centelled. There was like an NBA, there's like an NBA Central account and an NBA Centel account. And the Centel account was like a parody account that would put out just absolute ridiculous fake news that I thought was real because it looked just like the other account. So I would grab something in the middle of a show and say, oh my gosh, guys, did you see this? So-and-so got suspended for X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh no, dude, you got duped. You got faked out. It's embarrassing. I hate when that happens. I've reported fake trades before. It's embarrassing when it happens, especially when you guys correct me in the chat. I deserve it because I have to be better. I have to make sure that I'm verifying what I'm saying. So those are mistakes on my end. So I'm saying this to you because I've come across multiple tweets today that Jamar Chase is appealing his suspension. And the reason I'm saying this is because, okay, I think it's stupid that he's appealing this because what are you going to appeal? What are you going to do? Say you didn't do it? You did that already, you dope, and you lied and you got caught. So what else can you appeal? His reasoning in his appeal, according to Pro Football Talk, according to many NFL reporters, I mean, I'm seeing it on multiple Twitter accounts, X accounts, if you will. I refused to really go in on it earlier in the day because I'm like, there's no way that this is real. In my head, I kept saying, oh no, I'm going to report on this and I'm going to be NBA Centelled. I'm going to be faked out, right? These are real reports. Okay. I mean, these are real credible. I mean, Mike Garofalo, there's a lot of credible Jordan Schultz. Everyone is reporting on this. Yahoo Sports. that he's appealing it. Now, him appealing it is dumb to me, yes, but his reasoning for why is probably even dumber. And for those of you who are not familiar with why, well, here it is. Jamar Chase is appealing his one-game suspension, claiming that if he would have spit on Jalen Ramsey, basically saying he didn't spit on Jalen Ramsey, even though we saw it. I mean, guys, like, that's next level pathological liar BS stuff that, like, we've all watched you do it, and you're still, I mean, you leaned into your lie so heavily that you believe it, even though you've been caught. Like, we all know narcissistic people like that. This is next level narcissism, if you ask me. Jamar Chase is appealing his one-game suspension, and the reason he's doing it is because, well, for one, he believes he didn't spit on that he didn't spit on Ramsey. In fact, if he would have actually spit on Ramsey, he would have spit in his face. That's his argument. Jamar Chase claiming that if he would have spit on Jalen Ramsey, he would have spit in his face instead of on the ground or his jersey, according to Ian Rappaport. Again, Ian Rappaport, he's reporting on this. He's the one that is reporting that, again, Jamar Chase, that his argument is, I didn't spit on him. I mean, if I was going to spit on him, I would have spit in his face. I wouldn't have spit on his jersey. That's his defense. That's not a good defense. And if this was the court of law, kudos to any dumb lawyer that would have signed on to his team. I mean, because my goodness, Saul Goodman could not have come up with the way to get him out of this particular mess. Now, this isn't anything that, and by the way, this could be something legal because, like I said, if I go up to any of my coworkers that I don't like, and there's a good chunk of people in this building that I don't like and they don't like me, I can't go up to those people and spit on them and then just say, all right, Kenner, you're not allowed to work for a week. Okay, cool. See you guys in the week. Thanks for the 1 week vacation. No, that's a crime. That's breaking the law. That's assault. So this boob over here is trying to get off on a technicality. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like I said, I thought it was a fake report that he was trying to appeal this based on well, if I was actually going to spit on somebody, I would have spit in their face, not on their jersey. I don't get it. Now, there are some reporters who have come out today saying that, okay, there are many grounds of the appeal that you could, there's a handful of directions you can go in with this appeal, basically saying that, hey, precedent being one of those things. Like, maybe don't try to argue, if I was going to spit on somebody, I would have done it this way, not the way that you're saying I did it. I guess you could say you didn't do it, but he tried that and he got caught lying, so he can't go that direction. The one direction he can go in is say, technically, nobody has technically ever been suspended for this, so why are you suspending me? Now, I thought 2 games he should have been suspended 2 games. Had he got suspended for 2 games, it would have been a loss of 2 game checks, which he would have been basically fined $1 million. He would have lost $1 million and been suspended for 2 games if he would have got punished the way that I think he should have. I think 2 games is what he should have been punished for, to be honest with you. But missing 1 game is $500,000. $500,000. So that's where we're at. I don't know. At any time now, the report can come out as far as if he's going to win his appeal or not. I don't know how long it takes for them to grant the appeal or whatever. Because technically you could, like in the NBA, Major League Baseball and stuff, depending on how long it takes, the NBA, you play a game, you might play 2 or 3 days later. So if you get suspended, you could appeal. You could play 2 or 3 days later throughout the appeal process. Baseball, same thing, especially if you're a hitter, an everyday player. You're suspended. I'm going to appeal it. I'm going to play in tonight's game, but I might have to, miss games down the road, but I'm going to, play in the meantime. Football's a little different because you play once every 7 days. So, it might take a few days for them to go through this appeal process, but the chances of him playing, look, they're not going to reverse this, right? They're not going to reverse this. You spit on another human, you're suspended. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. But nonetheless, all right. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. We'll continue to, keep an eye on this developing story throughout, or at least the update as far as that's concerned, because I am very curious to see what direction they go in. Are they going to, uphold this suspension, or are they going to reverse course and say, you're right, we'll just fine you X amount, thousands of dollars, and we'll all go on with our week? Now, the NFL need to set precedent here. They need to set the tone and let everybody know that, hey, we're all grown adults that are millionaires, multimillionaires. I don't think we really need to be spitting on people just because someone said something that we didn't like. So there's that. All right. On today's show, we're going to talk some baseball coming up here in a bit because, look, we got upset that the Cincinnati Reds, or I got upset. I know a good chunk of you are upset as well about the Reds' aggressiveness this offseason. It sounds like they're not going to be super aggressiveness. They're not going to be super aggressiveness. Jeez, that they're not going to be super aggressive. In fact, a lot of their aggressiveness is going to be giving raises through arbitration to their arbitration eligible players. Guys like Tyler Stevenson and guys like that, and Nick Lodolo and guys like that. So that's what it sounds like. Now, that's going to be the extent of it. Now, I said yesterday, we were talking about the Bengals, and I said, sometimes when you win 9 games on a year where you miss the playoffs, the Bengals front office would use that as an excuse to say, see, we're this close. We don't need to make drastic changes. We just need to make a change or two, and I think we'll be okay. You almost use your success against you. And I think that's what's happening with the Cincinnati Reds. I think that the Reds front office, the fact that the Reds made the playoffs last year, I don't think the Reds were a very good team last year. They had really good elements to their makeup, but I don't think they were a very good team. I mean, they were not a good hitting team at all. If anything, this team should be, hitting the ground running this offseason, trying to load up this lineup with some production at the plate. That's what, it should be. But they're going to say, hey, this is a playoff team. We made the playoffs last year, and that's why we are going to give all of these raises to these arbitration-eligible players because we want to keep this playoff roster intact. That's super. I think that's a bad idea, and that bad idea might be even more of a bad idea if what I'm reading is true about the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates, every time I think it's bad to be a Reds fan, I always tell myself, hey, at least we're not fans of the Pirates. But it sounds like the Pirates might be going in a different direction this offseason. Could the Pirates end up doing what we want the Cincinnati Reds to do? And if the Pirates do that, could we be talking about a Reds team that was a playoff team in 2025 and, well, might be finishing in last place in 2026? We'll talk about that when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers here on a Tuesday, 937-518-1410. We'll be right back.
Jamar Chase spits on players. Kinner spits hot takes. The Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Save big money when you insulate your home with Knauf fiberglass insulation.
person in the family. Let the good times roll at Polking Lanes in Dayton on Wilmington Ave, Polking Woodman Lanes in Kettering on Woodman Drive, and Polking Lanes South in Centerville on Kings Ridge Drive.
Yeah, of course Kinner relates to Shador Sanders. He hasn't taken any first-team reps either. The Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, welcome back. Justin Kinner, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. This was supposed to be a huge offseason for the Cincinnati Reds. A year ago at this time, we were all super excited because the Reds did something unprecedented. They went out and when there's a need for the Cincinnati Reds, very rarely do they go out and they get the best option available to fill that void. And they did that when they went to get Terry Francona to manage this team. Now, I kept saying for the longest time that you don't go get a Terry Francona to continue operating as if you are being run by David Bell. Well, that's kind of how they do things in Cincinnati. And we were expecting that, hey, at the time, we didn't know that Matt McClain was going to make that take that major step backwards, right? Hunter Green was kind of really turned into the ace of the staff 2 years ago, coming into his own. He was 8th in Cy Young voting, would have been significantly higher on that list if he didn't battle so many injuries. So we knew that was going to be the case last year, that you have Hunter Green, you have Nick Lodolo. They went out and made a trade, and you get Brady Singer in the exchange for, of course, Jonathan India. And it's like, okay, they're doing some things. It wasn't the sexiest offseason, but we kind of expected that to be the case because of the fact that, they lost the TV rights money, with Bally Sports going under. So we were semi-understanding. But then there's this offseason where you made the playoffs in year one with Terry Francona. Kind of ahead of schedule, if you will. You did that in a year where we kind of didn't really expect you to. We expected you to be competitive, which was about what you were, but we expected there to be some growing pains because this team didn't really go hard in the paint in the offseason. I expect you to go hard in the paint this offseason because you have Terry Francona. You have a limited amount of time left with Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McClain and the core of this roster. And it's not just the guys in the lineup. They don't have a big core when it comes to this lineup. Spencer Steer is capable. Ellie De La Cruz is solid, but still has a lot of, deficiencies. Matt McClain took a step back. They don't really have anyone that's super sexy outside of Ellie in this lineup. The core of this team really the success of this team really goes to their pitching. You have Hunter Green, you have Nick Lodolo, you have obviously Brady Singer. Andrew Abbott kind of came into his own. You're going to get Rhett Lauder back. Chase Burns, you called up your number one prospect last year. He was a top 10 prospect in baseball, your number one prospect. You call him up. Sky's the limit for the Cincinnati Reds. But it sounds like they are not going to be very aggressive this offseason. It sounds like this was my concern. I remember when the Reds made the playoffs, I remember sitting back saying, hey, let's not get too excited about this playoff appearance. I think that this is actually going to ruin the Reds offseason, because had the Reds missed the playoffs, the front office could sit back and say, you know what? We missed the playoffs, and we missed the playoffs because we're missing X, Y, and Z. But now the front office could sit back and say, man, look at this roster. This roster got us to the playoffs. We don't need to add to it. We need to keep it together. And that's exactly what they're doing. They are doing everything in their power to keep this roster together. They're going to give all the arbitration eligible players, they're pretty much going to give raises to all those arbitration available players to give them a boost in their pay. They're going to move on from Nick Martinez, and that's going to free up $40 million for them to spend to keep them in the ballpark of what they spent last year. But over 20 something of that million of that 40 million is going to go to those arbitration eligible players. So that leaves you less than 20. Let's just put it at 18. Guess what? You're not going to go get a Kyle Schwarber with $18 million. In fact, I would almost be angry if you did go get a Kyle Schwarber for the entire chunk that's remaining, because you need a Kyle Schwarber and you need some complimentary bats as well. It can't just be a one-guy show. We saw them do this. They went out and got Ken Griffey Jr. Can you guys think of, when they went and got Ken Griffey Jr., they didn't do anything after that. It was like, all right, we got our face of the franchise. We got our draw. I think the only thing the Castellinis care about is having a draw. They want to have someone on this roster that is a reason that me and you go to that ballpark. And that draw was Joey Votto for the longest time. Why am I going to go watch a third, fourth, or last place Reds team? Well, at least we can go see Joey Votto. Why am I going to go watch a team that's going to finish third, fourth, or last place in the NL Central this upcoming season? Oh, because they have Ellie De La Cruz and Hunter Green and, Chase Burns. We don't need to go. Why go get a Kyle Schwarber? We don't need to. We're going to get you to the ballpark one way or another because they have a draw. That's all the Castellinis seem to care about is, do we have a reason for you to come to the ballpark? And it's not the reason that you and I want it to be. The reason that you and I, or the draw that you and I want the reason to be is a contender, a World Series contender, or at the very least, an NL Central contender. I don't want a wild card contender. I want an NL Central contender. And I believe that it's a cop-out for the Reds to sit there and say, we're going to be aggressive because this is a playoff roster, and we got to do everything we can to keep this playoff roster intact, and that's what they're going to do. Now, I bring this up because if you look at the landscape of the National League, and I have to wait until free agency really takes over, I got to see the activity of some of the other teams. But when you look at the teams that the Reds are going to be competing with, because I don't think they're going to compete, and it's not that I don't think. We know they're not going to compete for the damn NL Central. It's just not going to happen. They're not built. They are a wild card contending roster. And I say contending loosely, by the way. They are a wild card contending roster. And I say that loosely. I want them to be an NL Central contender because they will never be a World Series. Like I'll never look at a Reds roster heading into a season and say this team can win a World Series, because it's really hard to look at the Reds roster, even if they do add a Kyle. Like the Reds could add a Kyle Schwarber and a Eugenio Suarez with an Elly De La Cruz in this rotation. I still couldn't look at them and say, oh yeah, this team is equipped to go at the Dodgers. You have Elly De La Cruz and Kyle Schwarber. They have 3 MVPs in the top half of their order. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't really expect to look at a Reds roster and say, oh yeah, this is a World Series contending roster. What I want is that's a roster that could win the NL Central, and then anything's possible at that point. But what this is, it's a wild card contending roster, and that's not something to brag about. It's better than most years. It's better than the Pirates situation, or at least as we currently sit. That may not be the case much longer, which I'm getting to. But I just wish the Reds would stop with this. Like, I knew when they made the playoffs, we were screwed as a fan base. I knew that we were going to be punished for the Reds backdooring their way into the playoffs. That's why I got annoyed with Jim Day and anybody out there who I all respect, by the way, don't get me wrong. But there was a lot of, highly ranked Reds officials and Reds media that were saying, hey, the Reds, they didn't backdoor their way into the playoffs. They won the games that they needed to get here. No. They lost on the day that they should have won to clinch it, and they made it on the day that they lost because the Mets lost, and that's exactly how the Reds got where they were. So because the Reds backdoored their way into the playoffs, we are going to be punished now as a fan base because we are going to be gaslighted like crazy by that front office because they are going to tell us this is a playoff roster, and we are going to do everything in our power to keep this playoff roster together. So we are going to spend about what we did last year. We're going to free up $22 million by moving on from Nick Martinez, and we're going to use that $40 million gap to get back to where we spent last year. We're going to use about 22 of that to give raises to the arbitration-eligible players, which leaves us with $18 million, which means we're going to go get a solid bullpen piece, maybe a back end of the rotation guy for depth. Then they're going to go after those Gavin Lux level players, the Austin Hayes level players. Like, those players are great additions for depth pieces, but they're not great additions for, hey, Gavin Lux, we need you to play and start 75 to 85% of the season. Same thing with Austin Hayes. Those aren't guys that, if you're relying on them to be the centerpieces of a playoff roster, you're not going to, you can't confidently say that that's going to be the case. So with that mindset, it's good enough to be in the middle of the pack to the NL Central based on last year. But the Cardinals, they lost so much money last year because fans stopped going to the ballpark for the first time in decades. Fans didn't tune into games. They didn't go to the ballpark. And that's how you hit an ownership that's how you hit an ownership group where it counts. The Reds are coming off of a season, by the way, where they had a major increase in attendance and a major increase in, money being spent at the ballpark because of the attendance increase, and ratings on FanDuel TV through the roof. So the Reds deemed last year a successful season with ratings, with attendance, with ballpark revenue, jersey sales. We won 80 plus games. We made the playoffs. We're not a desperate franchise. We feel pretty good about where we're at, and we got to keep this roster intact. That's where they're at. The Cardinals, on the other hand, are going to panic, and they are going to improve that roster. So the Brewers are going to be the favorites to win that division. The Cubs are going to be right there as they always are. The Cardinals are going to surpass the Reds, and then there's the Pirates. How about this? If the Reds don't get a Kyle Schwarber, that's going to tick me off. This is a big power bat that hit 50-plus home runs. Can you imagine what he would do? This is a guy that hit 50 home runs playing the majority of his games in Philadelphia with a much bigger ballpark. Imagine if you gave Kyle Schwarber 162 games as a Cincinnati Red, with 80 of those being played at Great American Ballpark. What would his home run numbers look like then? With 50% of his season hitting in a hitter-friendly ballpark, what would Kyle Schwarber's numbers look like then? It'd be pretty dang phenomenal if you ask me. It'd be pretty phenomenal at the end of the day if you ask me. But the Reds aren't going to get a Kyle Schwarber. But the Pirates might. How about this? The Pittsburgh Pirates are going to be aggressive this offseason. With all the criticism that they have received last year with the, people lining up at the ballpark with the sell the team signs. You have Paul Skeens, who is just not happy. He's won multiple Cy Youngs, and he wants out of Pittsburgh. He does not want to be in Pittsburgh because they are not investing into the team. That message might be heard, and that change might be coming because the Pirates are in, according to ESPN's Jeff Passan, this was about 3 hours ago, the Pirates are heavily in on free agent Kyle Schwarber. In fact, Pittsburgh also went heavy after Josh Naylor, and they offered him at least $80 million before he moved on to sign with the Mariners. The Pirates are in on Kyle Schwarber. The Pirates are trying to put a contender together out there. They have the best pitcher in baseball. Okay? And they have a generational talent, and they're saying we can't let a generational talent go and have nothing to show for it. And they're feeling that pressure, and they're doing everything they can to have something to show for it. If the Reds are not careful, guys, this playoff roster that the front office says we cannot blow up, we got to bring back this 83-win roster that backdoored their way into the playoffs because it's a playoff roster, baby. They're going to bring that roster back. The Brewers and Cubs are already better than the Reds. The Cardinals will be better than the Reds. And then watch the Pirates with Paul Skeens go get a Kyle Schwarber and a couple other key pieces this offseason. And watch the Reds go from the third best team in the NL Central, one of three NL Central playoff teams last year, to finishing dead last because the Reds thought they were the smartest person in the room and decided that we can't blow up this playoff roster. We don't need a Kyle Schwarber. We'll be just fine. I'm hoping the Pirates get Kyle Schwarber, actually. I'm hoping that the Pirates do more this offseason than the Reds, and this is a bad fan in me. I'm hoping that the Pirates do better than the Reds because then the Pirates would be a team that you can look at and say, look, they're also an embarrassing franchise just like you, Cincinnati, and they prove that when they do decide to spend money, wins come with it. I'm kind of hoping that that's the case. Who knows? David is watching the show on YouTube. What up, David? I hope you're well. David says, what's up, Kenner? All the Reds are trying to do is just enough to sucker fans enough to keep them in the hunt for a playoff spot or squeak in like last season. That's it. David says, if the Pirates owner finally decides to spend more like he's an actual billionaire, Reds ownership deserves all the extra trashing that they receive. Yeah, but David, I agree with you. That's my whole point about this. The Reds making the playoffs was the worst thing that could have happened last year. Because if the Reds would have gone into the offseason coming off of another non-playoff season with Terry Francona as your manager, there would have been enough angst for them to make some changes. They're not going to make changes. Why? You have Hunter Green, you have Chase Burns, you have Nick Lodolo, all right? You have Andrew Abbott, Rhett Lauder coming back. All right, you got Brady Singer. You got a very deep bullpen. You got all these arbitration-eligible players that you're going to invest back into to give them raises. You've already announced you're going to keep the payroll the same as last year. That doesn't leave you a whole lot of wiggle room. They came out and did that on purpose because they wanted to thump us. They didn't want us to continue this momentum of Kyle Schwarber, Josh Naylor, Kyle Schwarber. Now, they were letting us know, don't you dare get excited. Don't you dare get it. By the way, Christmas is coming up. There's a lot of parents out there who are doing this with their kids. They're letting, now some kids are going to get everything that they want for Christmas. Some kids won't. So some parents are setting the expectations early. There's some of you are already telling your kids, you know what? Hey, I know you're really wanting that for Christmas, but I don't think Santa has that in his budget this year, so I don't want you to get your hopes up. And then that kid on Christmas morning is not going to wake up expecting to get the fill in the blank of whatever toy they were expecting. Some parents are like, anything you want, it's yours. You've been an angel this year. You're going to get whatever you want. Anything you ask Santa for, it's going to be under that tree. Damn Yankee kids. That's what they are. They're the Yankees of kids. All right. They're going to wake up. They're the Dodger fan of kids, right? They're going to wake up and get everything that they want. And then there's us, Reds fans. Get coal in our stocking. We're not going to get anything we want. We're just going to get a little couple stocking. We're going to get socks and underwear. These kids over here, the Dodger fans, they're going to get the newest gaming console. They're going to get the newest cell phones. They're going to get the biggest and coolest electronics. I sound so old right now, but they're going to get it. And then we as Reds fans, we're going to get socks and underwear. And the Reds front office, they're letting us know, don't you dare, when we're at the mall and when we're at the store or you're wherever and you see that really cool thing that you want, don't ask for it because you're not going to get it. And I don't want you to have high expectations on Christmas morning. That's what they did to us, basically. That's what they've done to us. So don't expect on Christmas morning to see Kyle Schwarber sitting under your Reds Christmas tree because it's not going to happen. You might be in the freaking Pirates Christmas tree, which is wild, but nonetheless. David says they're never going to be in a better position with the Hall of Fame champion manager to be a bit more aggressive and sign or trade for that impact veteran that they did. And again, try to truly contend. I agree. And I've said this before, and this is the scary thing. Okay. If the Cincinnati Reds can't find a way, if they can't find a way to win games, if they can't find a way to have success with the generational talent in Elly De La Cruz, a top 10 rotation in baseball with Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott, Chase Burns, Rhett Lauder, Brady Singer, etc., a Hall of Fame manager in Terry Francona, if you can't win with that, there is never going to be a move that the Reds can make to make us feel like there's a chance for us to win. You can't win with this guy. If you can't win with this, you're never going to be able to win anything moving forward. Because what are the chances of having another generational talent come up through your system? What are the chances of the Reds again going out and getting the best manager in baseball? What are the chances again of the Reds developing an entire rotation to have a top 10 rotation in baseball? And it might even be better than top 10. It might be top 5 next year. If Chase Burns takes that next step, if Nick Lodolo actually stays healthy and Hunter Green stays healthy, Rhett Lauder coming back, Andrew Abbott was to me, the most consistent best pitcher last year for the Reds. Yeah, if you can't win with a top 5 rotation in baseball with Elly De La Cruz, a generational talent, and a Hall of Fame manager, there's no need to be a Reds fan moving forward if they can't figure it out by now. So there you go. 937-518-1410. It would be very gut-wrenching if the Reds don't end up with Kyle Schwarber and the Pirates of all teams do. And if you're just joining us wondering where I'm getting that at, ESPN's Jeff Passan said that the Pirates are heavily in on Kyle Schwarber. Wouldn't that be a kick in the man parts if that's the case? The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. We'll be right back.
The Cincinnati Bengals defense is just like Chick-fil-A. Not available on Sundays. The Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared.
Odds in 56 Thursday. Rick Schrepp for 1410 ESPN Radio.
1410 ESPN Radio, because talking about sports is cheaper than therapy.
937-518-1410, the number to call and jump in on the conversation. I'm Justin Kinner. Welcome back. We opened up talking about, again, the more fallout from the Jamar Chase suspension. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to be without Jamar Chase this week in their matchup with the New England Patriots coming up later on this week, or maybe they won't be. Maybe they won't be. Now, keep in mind, Jamar Chase, after being suspended only one game for spitting on Jalen Ramsey during the Steelers-Bengals matchup over the weekend, in a situation where, well, it didn't, we didn't. When you think about Ramsey's reputation and you see him swinging on Jamar Chase, I think we all know how that went down, or how we thought we know it went down. Like, I think we all just figured those two were smack talking. Jamar Chase, he won the battle because he got under the skin of, Ramsey, and that's what led to Ramsey starting to swing on him. Because I remember, that's his reputation of being a hothead. And, I remember at the time thinking, good for Jamar Chase, like he knew he needed to get into the head of Ramsey, and he did. And not only did he get into his head, he got him ejected. I thought that was a huge win for the Bengals initially, to have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Flacco with the number one offense in the NFL since Joe Flacco arrived in Cincinnati. And then you go against Pittsburgh, who's not the greatest defensively right now. And then you get one of their best defensive players ejected from the game. I thought that was a huge win for Jamar Chase and the Bengals initially. And then come to find out, what led to him getting swung on was because he spit on him. And then after the game, when he was asked about, hey, did you spit on him? Well, he lied. He straight up lied.
I ain't never opened my mouth to that guy.
So what do you think prompted the reaction from him?
Well, he don't like some of the words I told him.
What are you saying?
I ain't spit on nobody.
I didn't spit on nobody. Well, you did, because then video came out afterwards, and you kind of did. So then the suspension comes out. He's going to, suspended for one game, and he's not going to get paid for that game without pay. So he's going to be suspended for the one game without pay, which is close to $500,000. That's a kick in the pocketbook for him. Now, I don't feel bad for him. This is a guy making $40 million a year, so I really don't feel bad for him. Boo-hoo. But he's not happy about having to miss this game. He's not happy about having $500,000, that he's being fined. So he's upset, and he's appealing. And I don't get it. I don't get why he's appealing, because we saw you do it. We saw you do it. Like, this isn't like, oh, he's been accused of using, some of the unapproved, drugs and all this stuff, throughout sports, whether, what I mean? Like, it's not like that. We see that in baseball all the time. You use some stuff you shouldn't. And, oh man, like, who was the player for the Reds? And, oh man, it was in a cheeseburger. I guess there was some kind of, there was something in the meat apparently that led to me failing that drug test or whatever. You could appeal that suspension, and, we want to believe you. We didn't see you we don't know your intent, and we didn't actually see you take the illegal drug, but, we could at least understand why you're trying to appeal it, because technically the league didn't see you take it either. So maybe there's some wiggle room there. We actually saw Jamar Chase spit. So I was bummed yesterday, because I thought this is a guy that should have come out and actually apologized, released a statement, said something. And the reason he didn't say anything is because he was appealing. And the grounds for his appealment is, this was his excuse. I crap you not. He came out and said, hey, I'm appealing this suspension. I don't think I should be suspended at all, because, like, if I was actually going to spit on him, and the phrasing of it almost entertains the idea that he didn't, even though he did, because we've seen it. If I was actually going to spit on him, I would have spit in his face. So because I didn't spit in his face proves I didn't spit on him. This is a real thing. I told you guys, I've reported fake news on the show before because it looked like an actual credible statement on social media. So when I saw this report earlier, I'm like, well, it says it's from Ian Rappaport. Like, this is a credible NFL reporter, an insider. It was such a stupid explanation on Jamar Chase's part that I actually thought it was fake, even though it was actually coming from someone that was real and credible. That's how incredibly stupid this excuse is for his appeal. Hey, you want to suspend me for spitting on him? Let me tell you one thing. I didn't spit on him, because if I was going to spit on him, I would have spit right in the guy's face. It's a real stand-up dude you guys have over there in Cincinnati. I got to tell you. Is what it is. I want to be done with this topic. I am curious how long it's going to take for them to respond to the appeal. But, David on YouTube, he comes out and says Chase is one of those athletes that actually deserves a longer suspension upon appeal for the blatant immaturity of failing to own up to his actions. Oh, I agree. I mean, he's lucky that the league didn't say, hey, we're actually going to make this an even longer suspension because 1 game suspension for just you actually spitting on another human being and a 2nd game for being an idiot and lying about it. Rob is watching on YouTube. Rob, I hope you're well. Rob watching on YouTube messages into the show says he's bald-faced lying should make the suspension bigger. Rob Panel also messages in, I think he's going to try to say I opened my mouth and it came out. I didn't initially try to spit, which is silly. That's fine. And that's embarrassing when that happens when you're talking to someone and you accidentally spit or whatever, or heaven forbid you drool or something really stupid that's embarrassing. I don't know about you, but I have never accidentally loogied on somebody. I haven't said, hi, how are you? Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry. My bad. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't spit on nobody. Hey, did you just spit on that person?
I ain't never opened my mouth to that guy.
I ain't never opened up my mouth to that guy. No. And why does he sound so weird when he does?
I ain't never opened my mouth to that guy.
That
What do you
guy.
think prompted the reaction from him?
Well, he don't like some of the words I told him.
What are you saying?
I ain't spit on nobody.
I didn't spit on nobody. So confident. Just bold-faced lie. I said 2 games. I want 3 now. I don't like Jamar Chase. I don't. And then, of course, the do-gooder media, the guys that, because that's the other thing too, when you watch these little press conferences, the media is obsessed with being friends with the players. So Paul Dehner Jr., who I really liked, by the way, I didn't care for his post today when he said something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's okay to criticize Jamar Chase for spitting on somebody else, but it's not okay to criticize the character of somebody. Yes, it is, Mr. Dehner. Yes, it is. I mean, good job. You're going to continue to get your interviews with Jamar Chase. More power to you. He's going to like you now because you did that. But the bottom line is, we know how you've worked in media long enough, and he's so dang good at his job. He knows how this machine works. When you act like he did and you do what he did, no one's going to come out and say, guys, hold on. Well, actually, guys do. This guy. I have no clue why we're defending. Hold on. He made a mistake. Let's not. I mean, he just straight up disrespected somebody by spitting on them. But hey, let's not criticize him now. Come on. He's a good guy. No, it's not how this works. I mean, I wish the media, who is actually silly enough to try to defend this, would go to their job and spit on somebody and see what the results of their actions will be. Come on. Chad Kinster says, did the spit actually hit Ramsey? Maybe Chase is telling the truth. LOL. Joking. Haha. Yeah. Because that's what I was waiting for. I went back to watch the video. I'm like, well, maybe the spit came out but went off to the side or something. No. Is what it is. By the way, I forgot that who was the player for the Eagles that spit at Dak Prescott? I mean, we talked about it yesterday. But by the way, I felt like that was an example from last season. That was this season. That was week 1. That's how many of these crazy scenarios have happened just in the first half of this season alone. But no, like I said, I know I'm on this again for the 2nd straight day. Jalen Carter. Thank you, David. Thank you for chiming into the chat. But yeah, Carter, I'm spending the 2nd day on this. I would have been done with this. I didn't even want to talk about it again today. But guys, you have to admit, even if you're a Jamar Chase guy, the appeal is kind of dumb. Can we at least agree on that? I know a lot of you are sitting back saying, man, Kinner's enjoying this. Anytime the Bengals screw up, he really enjoys it. Not really. I don't take enjoyment in somebody spitting at somebody else. I think it's gross. I think it's disrespectful, and I don't find that funny. What I do find funny is Jamar Chase is just how tone deaf he is. Like I said, to not even release an apology or a statement, and then to find out the reason he's not going to release an apology or a statement is because this idiot actually thinks he didn't do anything wrong. In fact, he thinks he's so innocent that he's trying to appeal this suspension. It would also be one thing too, is if he was asked about it and said, hey, no comment. I'm not going to comment on that right now. I'm, whatever. But it's because he just came out and lied. It's the lie too that made it even worse. And the confidence in the lie. And then the confidence in the lie, on top of the fact that you won't come out and apologize, and then come to find out that you're appealing it. And then the grounds for the appeal are, well, hold on. If I was actually going to spit on him, I would have spit in his face. I kid you not. That's his real reasoning, guys. according to NFL insiders, Ian Rappaport and others, the real reason Jamar Chase is appealing this is because I didn't spit on him, because if I was going to spit on him, I would have actually spit in his face. Oh, okay. Score. Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Yeah, Ron says maybe it was AI. Yeah, maybe. You never know nowadays. I mean, he could have gone with that defense. Hey, that you know. And then I see people mad too, because I think it was like a local reporter. It wasn't even like a Pittsburgh reporter that kind of released the footage. It was a Cincinnati TV reporter that released the footage to prove that Jamar Chase actually spit on him. I see people saying they're never going to watch that news channel again. Why? Well, you're more mad at the messenger than the $40 million entitled man-child that spit on another human being. You're more appalled. Like, people are more appalled at the local TV reporter releasing the footage than what's actually on the footage. Man, crazy. Fan is short for fanatic. That's for sure. No doubt about it. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Jamar Chase spits on players. Kinner spits hot takes. The Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
When you think of the most exciting team in Dayton, it's okay if you don't think of the doctors and therapists at Premier Health. We don't have jerseys or trading cards. We don't get primetime coverage.
You keep the profit. You don't pay anything in advance, and if something doesn't sell, you simply return it. You'll enjoy the experience of dealing with the Walter family. Call them at 513-891-5000. Email Adam at sportsinvestments.com or visit them on Montgomery Road, right off I-275, just 40 minutes from WING.
1410 ESPN Radio, because talking about sports is cheaper than therapy.
The Ohio State Buckeyes take on Rutgers on Saturday. It's a noon kickoff. 10:30 pregame coverage begins right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. So, Buckeye fans, it's been a while since I've had a segment where I've made Buckeye fans question if I even like Ohio State, but I'm at the point right now where Buckeye fans are starting to annoy me with how soft and defensive we as Buckeye fans are getting. If, the thing is, Ohio State's the defending national champions. They are the number one team in the country. What I can't stand is that when there are avenues to criticize Ohio State and people travel down those paths, sometimes those are the right paths to go down. Like, I don't think that the criticisms of Ohio State are wrong. I also just don't think that the criticisms mean a whole heck of a lot. I don't think it really matters. And what I mean is Ohio State has not played absolutely anybody with a pulse outside of Texas, and that pulse isn't even all that great, to be honest with you. This is the umpteenth week in a row where Ohio State's playing who the heck cares state. Ohio State Rutgers, I don't even know what the line is. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Ohio State's a 31.5-point favorite. Yawn. They're 10-0, defending national champions, number one team in the country. It's their second to last game before they play Michigan. And finally, next week, we'll feel like we're building up towards a big game, but I'm not excited about this Rutgers game. But there's a lot of criticism out there and people who are saying that, well, there's a lot of SEC teams that would have a similar record as Ohio State if they played Ohio State's schedule. Maybe. It doesn't mean that those teams would be the number one team in the country, and it doesn't mean that those teams would have a Heisman contending quarterback, the best football player in the country in Jeremiah Smith. It doesn't mean that those teams would have the number one defense in all of college football. It doesn't mean a dang thing. Bragging because, well, our SEC teams could beat Rutgers, that's not really a flex that you think it is. So Buckeye fans getting mad at these criticisms, sometimes it's okay when you hear a criticism to say, yeah, the schedule's not great. And then you flip it on them and you say, so are you actually saying that Ohio State's not the number one team in the country? Because that's really, when I get into a debate with anybody about this particular thing, man, Ohio State, they haven't played anybody, right? Yeah, I know. They beat Texas. That was back in week 1. It wasn't pretty either, but they won. But yeah, they haven't. They haven't beat anybody. The schedule's not great. It's been I did this topic last week. I said, overall, I think this season has been boring as hell. But that's a good thing, because if it wasn't boring, that means Ohio State would have lost to one of these horrible teams on this schedule, and we'd be having a much different conversation. But Ohio State's fine. They're the number one team in the country. They're the defending national champion. The 10-0. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why Buckeye fans have to be so sensitive. Calm the hell down. Man, Ohio State hasn't played anybody. Yes, huh? No, they haven't. And it's okay. It's fine. Ohio State did what they were supposed to. They put Texas on the schedule, and they beat Texas. And it's a respectful win, and here's why. For one, Texas is a top 10 team in the country. That's why. The second reason it's a big win is because it was the very first game of the season, and there was no primer games. There was no, oh man, Julian Sayin, a brand new quarterback. He's going to get a couple by the way, a brand new quarterback with 2 brand new running backs. And a bunch of guys to replace on defense, right? There was no, we get 2 weeks to beat up on who the hell is that state. And then Texas, it was, oh man, we've spent all offseason celebrating our national championship, all while introducing new, players to key positions. And we have to, make sure we're ready for Texas. Like, Ryan Day has done a phenomenal job. What I still can't get over is where Ryan Day is at right now, perception-wise, compared to a year ago at this time. I'm here to tell you, I do not want Ohio State to lose to Michigan, but I am very curious what the reaction would be if they did, because losing to Michigan next week, it really wouldn't impact a whole hell of a lot. Okay, so Ohio State would drop to what, 3 or 4? So Ohio State would probably still be favored to win the national championship, so who cares? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of where I'm at with this. Like, I want them to beat Michigan, but I'm also a big fan of chaos, so that's the other part of it too. But no, staying on track here, there is nothing wrong with people saying that Ohio State's schedule has been horrible, because it has. They challenged themselves with Texas. Oh, yeah, but they played Grambling State in Ohio. Yes. Tell me you don't watch college football without telling me you don't watch college football. Every single team out there puts most of them, they put a heavy hitter in their non-conference, and then they surround it with a bunch of Grambling States and Ohio's and who the hell cares state. And then you go into conference. And that's fine. That's fine. Because I don't blame Ohio State for their schedule being horrible. I blame Penn State. I blame Illinois. I blame Washington. I blame the Big Ten. The Big Ten is like, and that's the other thing too, because I notice a lot of guys do this. They get into these conference, verbal wars where it's just arguing about the SEC is overrated, the Big Ten's underrated, the Big Ten's as good as the SEC. Who cares? I say this in my thought on this is independent of the SEC. This is strictly a thought on the Big Ten and the Big Ten alone, with no bias towards any other conference. I think that the Big Ten is ass. I really do. I think it is the most overrated conference out there. I think it spends a lot of money, and I think it's propped up by Ohio State. But let me tell you this. If you take Ohio State out of the Big Ten and Indiana's the face of it, how good is this conference really? It's not. It's not. Penn State has been horrendous. Michigan has been, they've done what they're supposed to. They're in the hunt. They have a chance to make even more noise next week when they play Ohio State. But the Big Ten is awful. And I hate that. It's like, and it reminds me of politics. Bear with me here. If I criticize, and I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, so let's just set the tone there. But I'm making a point here, so bear with me. If I criticize a Democrat's take on something or stance or, issue or whatever, okay? If I criticize a Democratic policy and you're a Democrat, what's the first thing you're going to do? Oh, yeah, well, what about the Republican policy on blah, blah, blah? And that's why we can't have any useful conversation ever, because it's, well, Biden was an idiot for blah, blah, blah. Well, what about Trump and blah, 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 blah. And that's not dialogue. That's just pointless back and forth stuff. I can't believe the Democrats did this. Well, what about the Republicans when it comes to this? Okay, how is that accomplishing anything? Sometimes it's okay to say, hey, I know you're criticizing my political party, and you're right. My party probably could have been better with handling this. Hey, Democrats, your side probably could have been better at this. Yeah, you know what? You're right. I wish our political party would have done it better. Sometimes it's okay to say that, but it's not okay in today's climate, because if you come for me, I'm coming for you. Man, can you believe Biden did this when he was in office? Well, what about what Trump's doing in office right now? Can you believe Trump said this the other day? Well, what about Biden? He can't even form a sentence. Like, that's the thing. Like, we never, ever, ever can just have dialogue. It has to be. It has to be, it drives me nuts. And that's where we're at with college football. Man, I can't believe, Ohio State's schedule stinks. Oh, yeah, well, the SEC, if they didn't have the hype machine behind them, we'd be saying the same thing about that. Stop. Sometimes it's okay to just say that the Big Ten is ass sometimes, and that's fine. It's okay to look at the Big Ten and say, Rutgers, get your blank together. What is wrong with you for being asked every single year? The only reason you're in this conference is because of the New York market. And you would think that being in that market, that you would have been able to kind of put together some kind of, little wraps of dimes and quarters and nickels and pennies to be able to acquire some kind of talent. How is it that you're bad every single year? How is it that Purdue is bad every single year? How is it that Northwestern and Minnesota are bad every single freaking year? How is it that Michigan State can't figure it out? How is it that Iowa doesn't know what an offense is? How come is it Maryland doesn't do squat? How come is it that Nebraska just forgot that they used to be a power? Huh? How? I don't get it. It's the same damn thing every year. This conference is just, it annoys the crap out of me. And then what it does is it puts pressure on the Ohio States and the Penn States and the Michigans of the world, because heaven forbid Penn State have one bad year it makes the conference look 10 times worse. You know, LSU can have a couple off years, and the SEC is still propped up because there's a lot of contenders in there. There's a lot of heavy hitters in there. Penn State has one off season, and look how bad the Big Ten looks right now. Because with Ohio State and Indiana being at the top at where they're at, imagine if Penn State was who they were supposed to be. Even, let's say, with the loss to Ohio State, the Big Ten still looks very heavy with Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State, Michigan solid in there as well. But no, Penn State, the season snowballed out of control, and now what? The Big Ten looks horrendous. The fact that there's so much pressure on the top-heavy teams in the conference that always have to be great for the Big Ten to even have a shot at anything, it's absolutely ridiculous. And of all the teams to step up and carry the Big Ten the last 2 years, Indiana? Are you kidding me? I'm just so tired of every time people bring up college football, it has to turn into this heated debate, and it gets so old. You should be able to criticize the like, I'm a fan of Ohio State. You criticize their schedule, I'm going to say, yeah, you know, I think you got to give them credit for Texas, but yeah, this schedule's been awful. Because what happens is you hear people criticize the schedule. What you hear is they're not the number one team in the country. Because two things can be true at the same time. The schedule has been bad, and Ohio State's still the number one team in the country. I don't know how you could watch Ohio State and not think that they're the number one team in the country. You could watch Ohio State and be bored to tears because their opponents are complete crap, but you can't watch Ohio State and not feel like you're watching the number one team in the country. I'm just tired of it. It's like I said, it's the same thing in politics. You know, if someone criticizes your political party, you don't sit there and say, well, let me find out why you feel that way. Can we talk and have dialogue, and let's figure out why you think that? Well, have you ever thought that maybe this policy is this way because X, Y, and Z? And I can see why you're not a fan of it from your perspective, but here's really why this policy was put in place. No, dialogue like that doesn't exist. It's, hey, I don't really like that. I don't like your political team's policy on X, Y, and Z. Well, what about your political party's policy on this? And then you just get into a shouting match, and it goes nowhere. And it, honest to goodness, reminds me of college football at this point. Man, Ohio State, man, their schedule's been bad. Oh, yeah, well, can you believe that the SEC plays William and Mary and blah, blah, blah? Okay, well, we weren't talking about the SEC. We were talking about Ohio State's bad schedule. Who cares? I mean, I don't care that they play Mercer and all these other bad teams late in the season. It doesn't matter. In fact, I want to pull this up. What are some of the weak teams that the SEC are playing this week? Because I'm here to tell you, I don't care. I'm here to tell you, I don't care. Let's see. Let's go to the SEC. Let's see what fun stuff we have lined up for this week in the old, number one conference in college football. Oh, how about this one? Texas A&M. Right? Texas A&M. They somehow beat South Carolina. Oof, what a crazy game that was. Texas A&M is playing Samford. All right. Georgia is playing Charlotte. Alabama is playing Eastern Illinois. Auburn is playing Mercer. South Carolina is playing Coastal Carolina. LSU is playing Western Kentucky. Like, people are very upset about this. And I'm here to tell you, I don't care. You played. Why does it matter that they're playing Mercer in what week of this is college football? This is week 13. Why does it matter that Texas A&M is playing Samford in week 13? You played your Samford in week 2. Does that make you like? I don't understand what the problem is here. You play weak teams as well, but because they play it later in the year, that makes them worse. Why is that a problem? Why don't you play your Grambling State later in the season? Why don't you do that? Why don't you say, hey, I'm going to play Grambling State the week before Michigan so we can have our tune-up game before the regular season finale? Why do we do that? Like, I don't care. You played Grambling State in week 2. They're playing Samford in week 13. Who cares? Everybody plays bad teams. Why does it matter? Your bad team, our bad team is better than your bad team. That's a weird argument. I don't get it. I don't agree with it. Georgia's playing Charlotte. Can you believe that? 2 weeks left in the regular season. They're playing Charlotte. Yeah, I don't care. Who cares? They scheduled Charlotte because they're allowed to, and you're allowed to. You just chose not to. You made it harder on yourself. I don't know what you want me to say to that. I don't. I'm just tired of it. The reason that, the political climate is so bad nowadays is because there is no talking. It's just, oh yeah, you criticize my party, I'm going to find something to criticize your party. Oh, yeah, you criticize my team, I'm going to criticize your team. Like, by the way, I feel like this has always been the case. Like, I'm a Browns fan, as you guys know. And a lot of Bengals fans, not all of you, I feel like me and the Bengals fans, I think we've mended fences over the last year. I feel like I think we've just realized that both of our teams suck. And I think we've all just kind of agreed that, okay, we're all in this together, baby. But I feel like for the longest time, if I criticize the Bengals for something like, oh man, I still can't believe the Cincinnati Bengals screwed up this defense. Oh yeah, what about what the Browns did with the quarterback? Yeah, and the Browns screwing up their quarterback situation does not change the fact that your team screwed up the defense. Like, I don't get why people do that. It does irritate me. And it's not just in sports, it's politics and everything. You can't, like, hey man, I can't believe that the Bengals lost. Like, I mean, that defense is so bad. Oh yeah, well, how about the Browns offense? We weren't talking Browns, we were talking Bengals. What does that have to do with this? I don't know. I don't get it. But the bottom line is, I really wish people would stop getting so butthurt over people criticizing Ohio State's schedule. Because I'm here to tell you, I'm a big Buckeye fan. And I think that their schedule's been pretty bad too. It's bad. It's bad. Ohio State's not bad, but the schedule's bad. I'm looking forward to Michigan week because it's finally a game that I can get anxious and excited about. How many of you are excited about the same people that are mad at people who are criticizing Ohio State's schedule are the same people who will stop tuning in halfway through the first quarter on Saturday. I don't know. David on YouTube says many people just feel the middle bottom of the SEC is just as much ass as people feel the Big Ten is. I disagree. I think that the SEC has way more title contenders on a year in, year out basis. And David, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I disagree. Maybe it sounds like I'm saying you're wrong, but you get the point. I don't know. Let's look at the SEC real quick as we wrap this conversation up. I'm looking at like Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma. I mean, if Ohio State was in the SEC, Ohio State's at the top. Like, man, I don't know. I disagree, guys. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, it's Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma. I mean, Vanderbilt has built themselves into a team. They're 8-2. LSU 6-4. It's a bad year for them, but they're usually in the conversation. Tennessee has been they've been a talking point over the last couple of years. They were a playoff team last year. They're not going to be a playoff team this year. They're a top 25 team right now. But you look at the bottom, Arkansas is 2-8. South Carolina's 3-7. Auburn's 4-6. Florida is 3-7. I'm here to tell you right now, those are all bad teams. But I will take all of those teams over the bottom of the Big Ten. I will take Florida. I will take Arkansas and South Carolina. I will take all of those teams over Purdue, over Rutgers, over Northwestern. Like, I don't know why we get into this brand battle with people, and I don't understand it because I actually don't think it's that crazy to say that the SEC is just better than the Big Ten, top to bottom. It just is. Now you might, Arkansas they're 2-8. They're 0-6 in SEC play. Oh yeah, you think Arkansas wouldn't be the worst team in the Big Ten? Well, they might be, but okay. What argument are you winning with that one? I don't get it. Anyways, I'm sorry, we're out of time. I went on a long tangent there, but it is what it is. Is what it is. But I'm Justin Kinner. Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. But yeah, I'm still trying to keep an eye on this Jamar Chase situation. No update as far as that goes. Either way, Justin Kinner Show. We'll be right back.
We don't condone spitting when you hear something you disagree with. We do, however, condone talking it out for 2 hours every weekday at 3 p.m. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Choosing the James at Ohio State.